Hello, my name is Father Ted Trinko. I'm a contemplative priest of the Incarnate Word serving in the United States, and today is July 8th, Monday of the 14th week in Ordinary Time. The Gospel comes from Matthew chapter 9, verses 18 to 26. While Jesus was speaking, an official came forward, knelt down before him, and said, "My daughter has just died, but come, lay your hand on her, and she will live." Jesus rose and followed him, and so did his disciples. A woman suffering hemorrhages for 12 years came up behind him and touched the tassel on his cloak. She said to herself, "If only I can touch his cloak, I shall be cured." Jesus turned around and saw her and said, "Courage, daughter, your faith has saved you." And from that hour the woman was cured. When Jesus arrived at the official's house and saw the flute players and the crowd who were making a commotion, he said, "Go away, the girl is not dead but sleeping." And they ridiculed him. When the crowd was put out, he came and took her by the hand, and the little girl arose. And news of this spread throughout all that land. This passage from the Gospel of Matthew is very similar to one that we heard recently in the Gospel of Mark on the 13th Sunday of Ordinary Time. And in this Gospel, we see two miracles, this sandwich of miracles, if you will, where we begin by hearing about a man whose daughter is dying, and then there's a woman who is healed, and then we go back to the daughter who has now died and then is risen from the dead. And I want to focus primarily upon the middle miracle, the one about the woman suffering from hemorrhages for 12 years. And this is a sickness which undoubtedly was painful in one form or another. And anyone who has suffered from a chronic illness, something that's afflicted them for years and perhaps without any end in sight, knows that even though the actual sickness be minor in nature, the fact that it's drawn out for so long compounds the suffering that is included with that illness. Even a minor condition can become very arduous if it's drawn out for many years. This woman was specifically experiencing a flow of blood, which, according to Jewish law, made her ritually impure or legally impure. And to be ritually impure meant that she would be ostracized from the community, unable to participate in any social event or gathering. She wouldn't be welcome at the village well with the other women, town market, communal celebrations, or even the synagogue. Merely touching this person would make you ritually impure as well. So in many respects, her life in Israel would have been as isolated as someone's suffering from leprosy in the ancient world. So she both was physically sick as well as socially separated. And you can imagine how she bounced around from doctor to doctor trying all kinds of cures to get rid of this. Now, despite all that, she ends up spending, the Gospel of Mark tells us that she ends up spending all of her money and doesn't get better, but she actually gets worse. Now, in many ways, we can take her physical predicament and we can transfer it into a spiritual realm. And we can say that her experience is very modern in a certain sense, where many people are seeking for healing, they're seeking for fulfillment, they're seeking for peace, they're seeking for, just that satisfaction, that rest of their souls. They're looking for something, they don't even know what they're looking for. Happiness is usually the way we talk about it. And people are, all the time Googling it, buying books about it, seeing gurus about it, trying all sorts of different plans and programs to achieve it. And you can think about this woman in the gospel who for 12 years had gone from doctor to doctor. She was like a modern person who was trying all these modern cures. Some of the contemporary versions of doctors that maybe we have tried to find healing in. There's this fantasy of an easy life, this belief that, well, if this difficulty or if this trial comes to an end, then I'll be happy. Or sometimes people imagine that they're going to get happy if they can just time travel, if they could just go back to the way things were. Or people fantasize that the future holds the secret to their happiness. As long as the following things happen in the future, then I'll be happy. More crass and typical is that of material possessions. Like if I just get this raise, if I just get this vehicle, if I just get this computer, if I just get this clothing, if I just get this thing, then I'll be happy. Or people can sometimes look for happiness in too much of a good thing. There's many good things in life, food for one. But if you have too much food, we know that doesn't work out. But people have this illusion that if you get more of something that's good, you're going to be happy eventually. Or we look for happiness in the wrong relationship, or the world tells us to, find happiness through the approval of other people, vainglory. So these are different ways, these are different modern doctors that promise healing, promise happiness, but they can never actually provide it. Everyone wants it, but few people know the secret. And ultimately, the woman in the gospel found what she was looking for. She found the healing after 12 long years in Christ. In him, she found the wholeness that she was looking for. And in him, we too can find the healing that we need. Maybe it's something like we've been struggling with a vice for 12 years or longer. Or maybe some very heartfelt intention has gone unanswered. Or there's a broken family that for 12 years has been really a difficult place for us to live. There's so many different things that could be a source of sickness, that can be a source of unhappiness, that can be taking away our peace. And only Christ can truly heal us. Now, somebody might think, well, that's kind of cliche, just Christ is the answer. But there's a theological justification for it. In 1987, St. John Paul II reminded young people that it's a truth of our faith that all evil can be traced back to sin. We cannot forget, he said, according to the teaching of our faith, that the primary cause of evil, sickness, and even death is sin and all its forms. In the hearts of each one of us is this hidden sickness which affects all of us. So, if the source of everything bad, evil, painful, uncomfortable is sin, sometimes original sin, sometimes personal sin, but ultimately sin causes evil, pain, suffering, the solution is going to be the getting rid of sin. And it is Christ alone who can forgive sins. He invites us to rise. He invites us to get up. He invites us to return to the fullness of life. Primarily, and perhaps most fundamentally, through the sacrament of confession, where Christ heals us, where there's that touch of Christ. And so we need to approach that sacrament with faith. We need to approach the Lord with faith, because physically touching Jesus doesn't heal anybody. If somebody just superstitiously walks up to a tabernacle and touches the tabernacle, they're kind of touching Jesus, touching the fringe of his cloth, the tassel of his cloak, but they're not touching with faith necessarily. And so along with that contact with Jesus that's going to provide healing, we need to have that faith, which is where ultimately the healing of this woman in the gospel came from. And so let's ask Blessed Virgin Mary to intercede for us, that we might have the strength to seek the peace that contact with Christ alone can bring us.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed hearing the gospel and homily, I invite you to share it with someone you know who may also find it rewarding, and also to subscribe to the Catholic Voice channel. Please see in the description below if you would like to receive a text message for each daily gospel and homily. Please also keep our missionary priests throughout the world in your prayers. Thank you, and God bless.